Wow, 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 wow. This is making me miss my GR86. This car is so... If you're on the market for a lightweight, dedicated sports car that's sub $40,000, these are your two best options. We have an ND3 Mazda Miata Club with the Brembo BBS Recaro package, and we have a 2025 BRZ TS. And both of these are the most driver-focused specs that you can get of either vehicle. The ND3 with the Club Brembo BBS Recaro package, of course, gives you upgraded Brembo brakes in the front, Recaro seats, and BBS wheels, which I have swapped out for these Konig Hypergram 17x8s. In bronze, wrapped in Falken RT615K Plus in a 215 section width. The BRZ TS, tuned by STI, also has some driver-focused changes, including the Brembo brakes and Hitachi dampers. Now, in terms of MSRP, this one is right around $39K. I got it almost $2,000 off, right around invoice. I think it was $1,800 off, so about $37,000. And the BRZ TS, the owner, Greg, actually purchased this for about $1,000 below MSRP for around $35,000. Both are powered by naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engines. In the Mazda Miata, we have a 2-liter inline-4 making 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque with a 7,500 RPM redline, whereas with the BRZ, we have a 2.4-liter naturally aspirated flat-4, that's the FA24 engine, making 228 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque, also with a 7,500 RPM redline. They both have Torsen LSDs, both have a 6-speed manual transmission, and both of these cars in this spec can only be had with a 6-speed manual transmission. The Miata with a Club Brembo BBS Recaro is manual only, and the BRZ TS is also manual only because they know their target audience who's going to be buying these. Now, I owned a 2022 Toyota GR86, loved the car, tracked it a lot. You can find those videos down below. At that time, these special editions weren't available. Now they have a GR86 with Sachs dampers, equivalent to the BRZ TS with the Hitachis, and I'm curious to answer today, if you are a driving enthusiast that is focused on driving purity and wanting to upgrade your driver skill, should you get the most driver-focused ND3 Miata or the most driver-focused BRZ? For the ND3, we have a few notable updates: a revised steering rack, reduced friction, improved e-pass, and also an asymmetric LSD that reduces rotation on corner entry, so it locks up the diff more, and then on acceleration it locks it up less, so you can get more rotation on corner exit as you power out. Some mods I've added: this 330mm wheel with leather and Alcantara, so it matches my Recaro seats. I am a taller driver, so I actually lowered the seat by 2¼ inches thanks to Jass Performance and their seat lowering rails. And apart from the wheels and tires, I also added stainless steel brake lines from MiataSpeed and Castrol SRF fluid with G-Loc R10 pads in the front and R8 in the rear. We're gonna turn traction off. You can do this this intermediate mode, which will keep the kinematic posture control active, which is not designed for aftermarket brakes. Obviously, they've tuned it for the stock brakes with a certain coefficient of friction. So when I drive this car spiritedly, I no longer use that mode. I just go full traction off. And first impressions, this is driving purity. You have double wishbone in the front, multi-link in the rear, a beautiful to use manual transmission, naturally aspirated engine, and with the top down, it is a glorious experience. But for audio reasons, we're keeping the top up today. Brakes have a little bit of an increased solidity and bite to them with these mods I've done. Very lightweight, around 2,350 pounds with this Club Brembo BBS Recaro spec with the soft top. The RF weighs about 100 pounds more and does add a bit of chassis rigidity. But man, this lightweight nature is just, you can't beat physics. In a day where cars are getting heavier and heavier and more expensive, Mazda and Subaru/Toyota are giving us these pure driving experiences. Love the steering in this ND3. The update is quite notable. Better on-center feel, better feedback, better loading mid-corner. The steering was the biggest issue I had with the ND1 and the ND2. With the ND1, also the engine, of course, which was updated with the ND2. is a bit quiet though, so I'm thinking about doing some exhaust mods. I took it out on track just 2 days ago for the first time, and you could barely hear the engine. Let's give you a pull. Nice linear power delivery, but it is feeling a bit lacking in terms of power to weight, right? That's not what this car is about, as the ND is what, 10 years old? And all of these other vehicles, they've made so much more power. The ND, just small incremental improvements, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because the counterpoint to that is you can drive a slow car fast and get more enjoyment out of it. Love the manual transmission. I think this is the best manual transmission you can get, sub 50K, probably even sub 80K, honestly. Super direct, and they've done many iterations over the years. The ND1 had significant manufacturing issues. Now the suspension is the one big pain point that I currently have with my car. It's so soft. You can see, this body roll is just immense. Oh, but that rotation on throttle is money. Oh, just perfect. Last two corners there, getting that tiny bit of slip angle. Thanks to the new asymmetric LSD. I have a lot of thoughts of how this car drives on track, and that full track review is dropping very soon. But man, on the canyons, this is just excellent. I still want firmer suspension. The idea here is that they want you to be able to drive this on a bumpy road, because mostly when you find these beautiful mountainous and canyon roads, they tend to be bumpier. They're not super soft, or I should say, they're not super smooth. And for that reason, they give it softer suspension to better deal with that. But the issue is that you still get a lot of body roll. And now a lot of people go straight to sway bars. But there are significant issues with taking soft suspension and just adding sway bars to it. What you first want to do is get your dampers and your spring rates dialed in, and then add sway bars. And we'll be explaining that in much more detail when I actually add coilovers to this car in 2 weeks. Incredible what Mazda has done here. 3+ decades of perfecting this recipe. And in 2025, there's just nothing like this on the market today. I do feel like I'm at the very upper limit of who can fit in this car. I'm 6'1", 180 pounds. I had to do the seat lowering of the maximum of 2.2 inches and also raise the seat back, because otherwise the curvature of the seat back doesn't align with taller bodies. But I just am able to pass the broomstick test. Oh, I forgot to mention, I also got this Blackbird Fabworks roll bar in the back, which actually improves the visibility through the rear view because you don't have those hoops on the sides. And I just barely passed the broomstick test. That is one thing that the BRZ and GR86 have this thing beat on, which is that if you are taller or larger, it's going to be a lot more comfortable than this. It took me some time to get all the mods dialed in so I can fit, and even still, it's not the most optimal experience. I can't fully straighten out my leg, so on longer road trips and such, I need to stop and just stand outside of the car. But that's a small price to pay for all the benefits of having such a small, nimble car. The wheelbase of this is also right around 91 inches, 90.9, whereas in the BRZ it's 101. It is that much smaller, 10-inch shorter wheelbase, about more than 400 pounds lighter actually. But now it's time to see how the BRZ TS compares. All right, 2025 Subaru BRZ TS. Now, the two main things you need to know in terms of driving dynamics. Number one, upgraded brakes. We have Brembos in the front and rear, whereas in the Miata, you only get Brembos in the front with that BBR package. And you also have larger rotors in the front, 4 pistons in the front, 2 pistons in the rear. And the second thing are these STI tuned Hitachi dampers. And these are dual flow valve technology, the DFVs, meaning at lower speeds, you're actually gonna have reduced body roll and they're gonna be firmer. And then when you start driving faster to absorb larger impacts, you'll have softer damping. And then of course, you get some special TS badging on both the exterior as well as on the interior, and the special blue contrast stitching, which I think looks actually quite sharp. The only mod the owner has done is an STI Short Shifter, which shortens the throws by about 10%. Everything else is stock, including the tires, which are Michelin PS4 rubber in a 215 section width. The car is a couple grand cheaper than the Miata. You do have some compromises. You have McPherson strut front suspension rather than double wishbone in the front. Both are multi-link rear. You have a hardtop versus a convertible, which has some chassis rigidity benefits, but if you enjoy the top-down experience, obviously you can't get that. And I misspoke earlier. This actually weighs more than 500 pounds heavier than the Miata. This is 2,870 pounds versus the Miata's 2,340, but both have a 53-47 front to rear weight distribution. Getting into the interior, much larger than the Miata. I feel way more comfortable here. Except for one issue, which is that the steering wheel just doesn't telescope out enough. And I felt the exact same way in my GR86. You have to have the seat back pretty upright, and the seat, like, I feel like my feet and my legs are good now, and then my arms are too far stretched out, and then shifting into fifth, my elbow's locked out. So I wish that they had this telescope out a little bit and the shifter was a little bit closer to the driver, but not a big deal. And we're gonna turn traction off with this button, and then we can toggle sport mode on and off, which is only going to adjust the throttle response. Let's have that on first. Wow, a lot more grunt than the Miata. Oh wow, it is also, you can feel that rotation on throttle with the Torsen LSD, giving you just a tiny bit of slip angle, even on those corners back there. That extra power and torque goes a long way. Also, PS4 rubber, not the stickiest. But holy crap, these dampers are night and day different. These are so good. These are actually, they are both more comfortable, and you have way better body control than in the Miata. That is, the Miata has this initial impact, this harshness on the initial impact with the stock suspension. And here, it just, these are phenomenal dampers at $35K. This is a steal. If I were in the market between a regular BRZ and the BRZ TS with the Hitachi dampers, definitely worth it to go for the extra few grand and have the upgraded dampers. The brakes too. Wow, such solidity, firmness, so easy to modulate to very high resolution. These two mods alone, or I shouldn't say mods, these two changes in the TS completely transform the driving experience. And this feels so much more serious than the Miata. Now the Miata, I did upgrade the brakes, or rather the brake pads and the lines and the fluid, and they don't feel as good as this. Let's give you a pull. A lot more grunt than the Miata. And even though it weighs more than 500 pounds more, that added horsepower and torque goes a long way. I'm really impressed, man. Heel toe in both cars is super natural. Here with the sport mode engaged, I was concerned it would be too on-off switch, but it actually matches the brake pedal. So the brake pedal now requires less travel because it's so firm. And you don't want the throttle to then require full long travel. So with the sport mode, by making it more sensitive, you're reducing the effective travel that you need. And it actually feels more congruent in sport mode. I wish that it was maybe just a little bit less sensitive because it can feel a little binary, a little on-off switch. Oh, dude. Oh, yeah, that is... Oh, dude, perfect. This is making me miss my old GR86. Granted, my GR86 did not have this level of damping or brakes. Wow, what a great car. Stock for stock, this is definitely a more compelling offer than an ND Miata, even the ND3. Now the steering here is nowhere near as good as the ND. It has this strange stickiness off center. It feels more direct in terms of the front end response because you have the stiffer suspension. But the feedback and the mid-corner load up is lacking, significantly so versus the ND. And also when you start pushing this thing, especially on track, you're gonna notice more of that limitation of the McPherson strut suspension versus the double wishbone in the Miata. But this feels so much more serious and just right out of the box, stock, right? The only thing is the factory option of a short shifter. This feels so much more serious and planted and capable than the Miata. The Miata feels more like a toy in comparison. And the shifter in the Miata is also significantly better. This one has a bit of this lateral slop. It's a little bit too light. And it has kind of a cheap notchy feeling versus like this slick, more premium notchy feeling that the Miata has. The engine note as well is a bit more harsh, not as smooth. But man, heel toe in both cars are so natural. Ergonomics is pretty good in both, slightly compromised because the Miata is a bit small, and here I just feel like the steering wheel and transmission are just maybe half an inch too far from the driver. Wow. This is making me miss my GR86. This car is so good. But with the Miata, you can feel that they have been iterating on it for a longer period of time because there's a certain level of naturalness to the inputs that the BRZ just doesn't have. The steering here is definitely not as good. The transmission, not as good. The pedals, the brakes feel really good, but the throttle, like in sport mode, it's a little bit slightly binary. Not in sport mode, it is more linear and it's actually nothing wrong with it, but then you have a very firm brake pedal in comparison. And while this does weigh more than 500 pounds more than the Miata, it's still such a featherweight in 2025. You compare it to any other sports car. You look at BMW M cars, they're almost 4,000 pounds, right? Granted, those aren't dedicated sports cars. Even looking at Porsches, right? You look at a Cayman, 3,100 pounds. This is sub 3 by a decent margin. And these two cars, I mean, truly something special. Now, if you're going to be tracking your car, stock for stock, this is way better prepared than my ND3 Miata. But there are some trade-offs, right? The ND Miata is lighter. You have that double wishbone front suspension. You have the top-down experience if you want that. But keep in mind, you trade off some chassis rigidity by doing so. I think the ND Miata is gonna, for most people, be a little bit more enjoyable on the street because it feels more fun, playful, and whimsical. But if you want to actually bomb the canyons and have more confidence and go faster, this would be the car that I would pick. And also on track, this is going to give you a little bit more confidence, although there are engine reliability concerns that, you know, we've talked about previously on podcast episodes. And also the McPherson strut front suspension, it does wash out, but you just get camber bolts for the front, and you can do lower control arms for the rear to add additional camber to help overcome some of those limitations. So you really can't go wrong. They're both excellent cars. You have way more added practicality here. I actually owned a 2013 Scion FRS for 9 years as my only vehicle. Then I had a GR86 for almost 2 years as my only vehicle, and it's super practical. You can actually fold the rear seats down and fit a ton in it. I was moving between apartments, no furniture, but all my other belongings would fit in. And it's a single car that can do everything, including fit certain people in the back in emergency situations. Don't want to be using the rear seats on the reg. Whereas the Miata, that's not your first car. It has to be your second or third car. Sure, some people will daily drive it as their only, but those are the exception, not the rule. But I am overall a little bit surprised. I find myself really missing my GR86. The BRZ TS is so good, especially with these upgraded brakes and dampers. Whereas the Miata, as much as I love my Miata, I need to do coilovers, and then maybe I'll feel like it's a worthy comparison and it's the car that I would pick between the two. But right now, if it was my money, I'd honestly go for the BRZ TS, stock for stock, or even stock with very minor mods on the Miata. But my friends, let me know what you think with a comment down below. Big shout out to Greg for letting me review his BRZ TS. If you want your car reviewed, visit us on jabalandcars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.